James Melendez, James the Wine Guy, another first on my video channel, this hard cider to review, so stay tuned. Since it is my first video review of a hard cider, there's a different way of thinking and approaching this particular beverage art form. And I had to rethink how I was talking about it and recalibrate, because I talk about wine so much, or maybe even ale or coffee or spirits or gin, and ultimately I have to recalibrate, rethink, and retool how I talk about that. So I just want to give a little bit of history on, talking about videos, because they're not all the same, and that's the beauty of the beverage art forms we find ourselves in today. So 2014, great times. And when I think about, the United States and the Prohibition era, which was terribly destructive, and really great art forms like hard cider declined rapidly, wine states really took a beating, and yes, alcohol was still being created and shipped from all over the world into the United States, but ultimately the craft here in the United States really took a complete dive in terms of where it was. And it was also really destructive for the consumers, because consumers were really having to redevelop what they were missing for a number of years. So during Prohibition, not everybody drank. Of course, some people did, and you were allowed to for familial consumption and for sacramental purposes and for a variety of reasons. A medical prescription, if you will, for alcohol, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But ultimately, what ended up happening in the bulk of things is that Prohibition was terribly destructive. So not even just towards the end of Prohibition, but it expanded outwards. So you find a period of time where you find wine consumption, beer consumption, actually was not really that significant for a period of years after Prohibition, maybe another generation and a half before things started up again, in terms of, wineries really taking a different approach to how they, vinified wine. Looking at producers, instead of producing mass production of beer, or really getting back into the palate of the imagination, which is hard cider. What is it? And things really start sweet, and then they really dry up over a period of time. So tasting this beautiful hard cider was a great journey of getting back to basics, which is really beautiful craft cider. So this is called Far Cider 2012 vintage, extra dry, 650 milliliter, 7.4% ABV, back panel free and spec. The apples come from Sebastopol in Sonoma County, and it is created into hard cider in Napa County. And when I talked to the producer from Far Cider, and I understood that this is heirloom apples, it is a beautiful art form. Look at the coloration. It comes out a little bit of a sparkle on this, and for me, the beautiful notes on this are just evocative and lending to a beautiful diversity at the tasting table, because I think that's what it's all about. So its tradition comes obviously from Europe, and it comes into the Americas. It was created in terms of, you look at apple production in the United States, and due to the nature of apples, and there's a great PBS series, and it's called Botany of Desire, and it's about Michael Pollan's writings about botany and food. And very interestingly enough, that you'd find a lot of apples over a period of time. Either, say the parent would produce sweet apples, yet its offspring would not. And that's a different composition between using the seeds and grafting apple trees. And ultimately, what comes from that is sweetness level. So there was a campaign on to think about apples as a sweet fruit versus something that's unpredictable. And that was keep one apple a day keeps the doctor away. And so that was a very successful campaign, something we don't think about today. It's thought of as just as part of a folkloric saying, but ultimately was a marketing tagline. And it was a really good tagline, because ultimately the apple was saved in terms of it being a fruit, and today to enjoy it as a fruit or as a hard cider. And I think I tasted some really bad examples of hard cider where it was just so sweet. And that's because I think, you have to reimagine where people are coming from in terms of producers saying, how do you get people interested in cider again? We got to sweeten it up. And that same thing happened with wine. And in terms of iterations that up until, say, maybe a generation ago, things really dried up quite a bit. And we have different expressions than we did, and that was not too long ago, right? You think of 2 generations, and I mean, that's just a ballpark number. It's not an exact number, but you look at in terms of quality production and artistic production, there's a different way of viewing things like cider. And when I think of cider and the beverage art forms, we live in the best of times. 2014, we have, I think this great interest in hard cider. I don't want to say it's a trend, because I don't believe in trends. I don't promote trends. I don't want trends to exist. very simply because I don't want that to be, because when you think of trends, they go up, they go down. I want to think of this in terms of the whole assortment of availability, that is the diversity of tasting. You may not always want a wine, you may not always want a beer, you might want a hard cider for your meal that you're having. And with producers like Far Cider, it's a really great expression in terms of the scent characteristic is different from the flavor profile. That's a beautiful thing. So here we go. Notes on the scent characteristic are hibiscus, jasmine, truffle, fresh cedar wood. So here we go. Take a taste, give some flavor notes, and a point score. Superbly dry. Beautiful notes of Meyer lemon, green citrus, lemongrass, honey. So here we go. Take a taste, give some flavor characteristics, and then a point score. Superbly dry, and I love that quality, but very expressive as well. So I'm getting notes of Meyer lemon, green citrus zest, lemongrass, honey, white tea, and white floral notes. I give this beautiful hard cider 9.4 out of a 10.0 scale. And if you like this video review, please give a like right here. Also, list your hard ciders that you like right down below here. I'd really like to try them. And please subscribe to my video channel here on YouTube. I'd appreciate that very much. And I'm going to do more hard cider reviews in the future, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm on most social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Vimeo, Google+, and Pinterest. Thank you so much. Salut.